All right. YouTube, what's up? We are live. And I think I can go live on Instagram now too. Let's see. See if I'm still banned. All right. We're on Instagram too. Cool. Let's see. Welcome everyone. We're going to do some cool stuff today. We're going to do a practice or two before we get into the usual Q&A session. Hope everyone's doing well. So, hey Vishnu, yeah, it's been a pretty good week. It's been a very good week. Hope you've had a good week as well. Welcome everyone. First off, before first of all, okay, let me share with you guys. I'm gonna share a practice with you guys, maybe two practices. If there's anything in particular you guys want to like any sort of practice, anything you want to focus on, let me know. That might kind of guide what we do here in the beginning. But first of all, I want to mention that my 12-week course, Multi-Orgasmic Man, is open for registration just for about another day, right? Just over 24 hours of closing registration. This is a very, very comprehensive program, an intensive training program for men to help them. It will help you learn to clear negative patterns, negative thought forms, negative beliefs, things that are holding you back, that are constricting your energy, so you can start to open up the body, learn how to open up your energy channels, which is a foundation for moving sexual energy through the body, having non-ejaculatory, full body orgasms, increasing your sexual endurance, your ability to have sex as long as you want, basically without ejaculating. So I go way into depth into this course. It's incredibly transformational. It's going to impact every level of your life, honestly. So again, that closes tomorrow. There's a link in my Instagram bio. There's a link on this video as well in the description. Join the over 1,000 of men have gone through this course, and I've seen so many powerful transformations through it. So really excited for the next group of guys to go through that and change their lives. With that, we're going to do a little bit of a practice here. Let's see, what are we going to do? Because the thing is, my whole thing is like, we can talk about this stuff. It's great. It's good to, have a theoretical concept of these things and say, okay, I'm transmuting my sexual energy and all these things. But without a daily practice to actually do this, right? Sometimes the talk is just talk. So I'm all about having a practice where you do this. Let's see, what should we do? We can pump sexual energy up the microcosmic orbit. That may be a good practice to do. We could do some breath work. We could do a qigong practice. What are you guys feeling? Let me know. Well, we're just gonna go for it. All right, let's move to sexual energy. So, pump. Okay. Forrest says pump. All right, we're gonna pump sexual energy up the spine. I'm getting several answers. That's a good one, right? So this is something actually both men and women can do. I know that there's probably some women watching on Instagram. Most of my YouTube following is guys. I know there's a few. There's several women on YouTube following me too. So, anyways, this is gonna be for everyone, right? Let's start by breathing into our sexual organs, right? For men, your testicles. If there's any ladies watching, want to do this too. Ovaries. So let's breathe in and out of your sexual center. Breathing into this area, like really like expand your belly as you inhale. It's like you're breathing deep into your pelvic floor, deep into your testicles for men. Notice how that feels. How does it feel to breathe into your genitals? Starts to activate it. Starts to activate the sexual energy in a manageable way. And as you exhale, pressurize the exhale a little bit. It's like you're blowing on a fire. Like as you exhale into your genitals, it's like you're blowing on a fire. It starts to increase the energy there. All right, now we're going to pump the energy up the spine. So how you do this, you can simply breathe, move your mind. In fact, let's do that first. So let's just breathe. And as you start the breath, your mind starts at the sexual organs. So testicles for men, if there's any women watching, ovaries, right? or the yoni itself. So as you inhale, you sweep the mind in a way from the genitals up the back of the body, up to the crown of your head, just moving your mind in that pattern. And as you exhale, just hold your awareness there as you exhale. Let's do it. So just exhale, move the mind up. Or sorry, inhale, move the mind up. Exhale, yeah. So again, inhale, it's like you're sucking up the energy up the back of the body, up to the crown by moving the mind. And as you exhale, absorb the mind into the brain. You're just absorbing awareness into the brain. Concentrating the energy there. Let's do that again. Drawing energy up. Absorb into the brain. How's that feel for you guys? You feel that? So you can do this when you're aroused, when you're having sex, when you're self-stimulating, whatever. You're moving your mind through this pathway, and it starts to move the sexual energy, right? It's that simple. But sometimes it's not enough, right? Especially in the beginning when your channels aren't quite wide, as wide open as they may need to for you to really move this energy. We're going to step it up a little bit. So we're going to add just some slight physical engagement. So now as you do this, if you're sitting, we're going to engage the glutes. If you're sitting, standing, lying down, doesn't matter. Slight engagement of the glutes. So if you're sitting, it's like you're kind of pushing your butt against the chair. You'll feel your body lift up a little bit, almost like you're trying to squeeze the butt together. Just a subtle, not like 100% force, just a little subtle squeeze. So that's part of it. The next part is kind of pulling your belly a little bit, like you engage the abs, like you're pulling in your belly to your lower back. You do that in combination with that kind of gluteal engagement. And then breathe in a bit more powerfully and kind of tuck your chin in, tuck the neck in. And as you sweep the mind up to the crown of the head. Exhale, relax. Again, inhale, pump it up. Relax everything as you exhale. Inhale, pump it up. And now as we exhale, move the mind down the front of the body like a waterfall. Just trace your front of your body with your mind down to the belly. Again, pumping up the spine as you inhale. Up the crown of the head, down the front of the body. So that's basically a method of doing that, right? And you notice this slight glute contraction pulling the belly. You can you create this kind of pump, this sacral pump, moving the energy up the spine. You can do this when you're having sex, when you're moving. Use these engagements to kind of move your hips forward as you squeeze the butt. Use that to kind of drive your movements during sex, and you'll be pumping sexual energy up your spine. Now, I will say that this is actually, it's really not that difficult to do, right? But at the same level, it's kind of an advanced technique because for men, we have this very strong pathway of where our sexual energy is used to moving. It's used to moving out of our body. And so it can be difficult for men in the beginning to go straight to like, okay, I want my aroused sexual energy to move in a different direction. It can be very difficult to do because your aroused sexual energy is very volatile. It's very fiery. It's very ingrained into how it flows. So it's pretty difficult to control that in the beginning. That's why there's foundational work we do to clear blockages in your body, in your mind, clear negative emotions and things like that, open up the channels through qigong, through breath work. And now with all this foundational work, which is very important, when you do these types of practices, they become 10 times more effective. It becomes effortless, right? So that's just something to look into if you're trying these sexual practices and not really getting anywhere with them. You've probably overlooked the foundations. And that's a big part of what I teach in my course, Multi-Orgasmic Man, is all the foundations that make the sexual work actually pretty effortless. Because what I've seen is that, it's important to understand for men is you're cultivating sexual energy as you're practicing semen retention, whatever, without balancing and refining the energy you're building up, you can potentially amplify all of your imbalances, all of your negative emotional, mental patterns, your frustrations, your angers. I've seen this a lot because men just go into like, okay, I'm just going to build more power, but it's not necessarily balanced, right? And so This is why it's important to have the foundation work, preparing the mind and the body for this increased energy so that it stays refined, it stays balanced, and you feel great versus feeling irritated, frustrated, stuck, stagnant, excessively horny, right? This is a good sign that you're doing something wrong. So just keep all these things in mind. And again, my 12-week course, Multi-Orgasmic Man, go way, way, way deep into all of this, all the foundations and all the advanced practices for sexual mastery. It's closing tomorrow, so now's your last chance to get in. All right, I'm going to answer some questions. Feel free to send in your questions. I see some already in the chats here, so it's good to be back on Instagram. I was every now and then one of my posts gets taken down, and then I can't go live for a week or two. Okay. Okay, Lucas is asking, is there any safe technique that might naturally increase penis size a little bit? The best recommendation I would say right now is Angion method. I talk about this all the time. Angion. Look that up. I also teach it in my course as a bonus, but Angion method is basically a safe way of what it does is it improves blood vessel development in your penis, which is kind of a foundation for actual penis growth. There's a lot of techniques like stretching, jelqing. I used to do some of these myself, but I found that they can be very dangerous. You can severely damage your penis doing these things. And so I don't recommend these techniques, right? But Angel method for me overall has been the most, I've had amazing results as far as my erection quality. So definitely recommend that. Kid Life Crisis says, what are some other good breathing exercises? That last one was great. I mean, there's all kinds of great breathing exercises. I teach several in my course. Um, pranayama techniques, Taoist breathing. There's tons of great breathing practices. It depends. It depends what you want, right? Some will energize you, some will mellow you out. I like to do alternate nostril breathing, where breathe in the left nostril, breathe out the right, breathe in the right, breathe out the left. I like to do that to like calm. I like to do that one before bed. You can also use that one to work with the left and right channels of the body, the Chong Mai meridians. There's lots of amazing breath work practices. Meditate for Life said, do you sometimes drink your urine? I can't say that I do. No. I know this urine therapy is becoming a bit of a trend, but I haven't jumped on that boat at this point, I will say. Angion method, Angion. Just Google that. You'll find a plethora of information about it. Okay. Do you have exercise for women? Deli Moni is asking. Yeah. So my partner Mariah and I actually created an entire course for women, which is also open for registration right now. Multi-Orgasmic Goddess. Find out more information about that in my Instagram bio. There's also a free guide in there for women, so check that out. Okay. Aisha Nonoa says, do men and women do this technique you just did simultaneously? Yes, a man and a woman can both. I shared a technique at the beginning of this. If you missed that, you can check out the replay. But yeah, both men and women can use this technique together. And really the basis of this practice is you're just moving energy up your body, which with skill you can do with mind alone. And so that's part of the practice for men and women is they're guiding the sexual energy through their channels throughout a lovemaking session. And your channels start to connect together. It ups the orgasmic intensity. It's amazing. Live Life Love Music says, is the Angion method an investment that actually returns? For me, as yes, exponentially. Again, it just depends. Like, what are you trying to? I did it because I heard people talking about it. Because I'd been using like jelqing exercises before, which were having very mixed effects for me. I started practicing the Angion method, and immediately, like immediate increase in my erections. And after I've been doing it for a year and a half now, and now I have these erections that are like hydraulic pressure, like it's intense how this is probably a lot of information, but since he's asking, it's amazing like how much my erection quality has improved from these exercises. So I recommend them, but it doesn't happen overnight. You have to do them consistently. It's basically a type of workout for your penis. The Boulder Man says, when practicing semen retention, how do you balance out so you don't just sit with the frustration? By moving the energy. Here's the whole thing. When you're practicing semen retention, and in general, when a man's feeling aroused, he's feeling horny, it's the activation of your sexual energy in some way. It's an arousal of it, which is seeking a completion, right? So how do you reach a completion without basically depleting yourself, right? This is the whole thing with men, is that when your body's kind of closed down, when your channels are kind of closed down, and there's this disconnection from your sexual center from the rest of your body, then the only kind of completion you can ever feel sexually is ejaculation. So when you're not ejaculating, you just feel like you feel really edgy. So this is basically, it's important to open up your body, do these practices I'm sharing, the sexual kung fu techniques, to circulate the sexual energy through your body. Because when that sexual energy moves out of your genitals, it's no longer just this base kind of lustful, impulse driven energy, right? It starts to become refined. You move it through the microcosmic orbit. There's lots of techniques for doing this. Send it into your heart. It will become this more loving, expansive energy. Put it into your art, put it into, creative outlets are extremely important as well. So basically you need to keep this energy moving, and it's not about suppressing your sexual desire, right? That's another big issue men run into, is they're doing semen retention or nofab, and they're just like, okay, well, I'm just not gonna, engage in sexual pleasure anymore. Sounds like a good idea, but after a while, it's like you're shoving this spring in a drawer, and there's all this pressure built up, and as soon as you lose your grip, it explodes, right? That's how it is for a lot of men. So learning to separate ejaculation from orgasm, so that you no longer associate sex and self-pleasure, whatever, with as ending in ejaculation. You learn to move the sexual energy through your body and release that pressure in ways other than ejaculating. And this is a big part of the focus in my course. Okay, Delimani is asking, do you think that a woman could have a fulfilling sexual act with a man she doesn't love? It depends. It depends what you find fulfilling as far as sex. Like, if for you just like kind of getting off and having an orgasm is fulfilling, then I'm sure you can find that. But for me personally, sex without a deeper connection, it does nothing for me. It often makes me feel worse, actually. Here's the whole thing. Sex is a sacred act. It's meant to be this full body, full energetic system experience, and we've kind of been distorted through our, how we learn to experience sex, how we've been programmed to see sex as just this lustful act of like trying to get something from someone, trying to like, get off, right? Trying to scratch an itch. And, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you kind of wonder why you're never really finding fulfillment or like real contentment in the experiences you've been having, it's probably that there's a bigger part of it, And here's the whole thing with humans in general, is there's often this disconnect between the heart center and the sexual center. And physical sex alone will only be so satisfying. Is once I integrated this energy with the rest of my being, that I was able to connect my sexual energy with my heart energy, and sharing that energy with someone who I love deeply, who I'm deeply intimately connected with. It's just it's an unbelievably powerful, like, soul. You become, it's like you merge with that person and you go into this altered state of consciousness. There's no boundaries between you. So it's just, I don't know. It's like, what do you want from a sexual experience? Do you want a low base level, like I'm just trying to get off, or do you want like powerful, full body cosmic orgasm that lasts for like days after the experience and makes you feel great, right? It's just, what do you want? Vishnu Mohan says, how to stay away from Kundalini awakening while on NoFap? Well, this is going to be a pretty rare thing for most people. You have a true Kundalini awakening because it's like you're on LSD 24/7. You're multidimensional. You're in other realms. You're not in the same reality anymore. More likely, what people are often experiencing is excess yang qi, the governor meridian, the dumai, the back channel. It's very active, but their front channel is kind of closed off. This is very common for men, especially when they're doing like intense energetic work that focuses on bringing the energy up a lot of yogic practices. Basically, it's all this rising fire energy, cooking your brain, making you feel a bit, disconnected, little delusional, just feeling ungrounded and just intense anxiety things. That's different than true Kundalini. That's it's known as Kundalini psychosis, but it's really just an overactivity of the fire energy in your body, basically, which can be balanced by grounding, increasing the yin you have, and working with the front channel, conception vessel, Renmai. So that's why it's important to do practices that balance you when you're building up sexual energy, because yes, there's a tendency for men to get overheated and experience unpleasant side effects when they're doing semen retention. That's why I stress this is it's important to have foundations in your practice, right? It's kind of the theme here, I think. Wandering Soul says, is the tongue palate posture really necessary? If so, then when? I think you're talking about placing the tongue against the roof of the mouth. This is necessary if you want to connect the microcosmic orbit, front and back channel, right? So I do it, actually, I naturally, because, I learned this when I was learning qigong. It's like, you want to connect the two meridians, place the tongue up there. So it felt a little bit forced in the beginning. And now I found that I just naturally have my tongue there all the time because I started, doing it, and it just became a habit. So you definitely want to do it if you're working with the microcosmic orbit, if you're doing that sort of sitting practice, if you're doing qigong, moving energy in general. But if you're like, during lovemaking, for example, maybe you have your partner's tongue in your mouth, you can't, connect it up there. You're creating a different circuit that way, right? Lucas says, do you recommend having non-ejaculatory sex before sleep once it will leave you energized and possibly have insomnia? So basically, you're feeling very stimulated by non-ejaculatory sex right before sleep, right? Personally, for me, this hasn't really been an issue unless it's like a very, very intense, if it's like an hour plus session and I'm just like really moving some energy from it. But if it's right before sleep, typically I'm a bit more relaxed with, like, as far as moving energy, I won't move it up into my head usually. I'm usually just working with the lower energy centers. Like I pull it up into the Dantian mostly, pull it into the organs. I teach you how to do this in my course, but just keeping it below the head basically, right? And stay relaxed. Something else I think is really, really nice is ending the session with just a kind of a meditative passive connection with your partner where you're still physically connected, but you just lay together, just breathe together and just allow the energy to move. And that actually often like puts me to sleep. It's like it really balances me out. So just make sure you're not, using too much force, too much fire in your practice at night. You want to be more relaxed. Be very, very gentle with as far as like drawing the energy, and maybe just have more relaxed sex. You can have very much slower, more passive sex right before sleep if you're having trouble sleeping afterwards. Omar says, what is your take on polyamory? People always ask us. I feel like I've answered this many, many other times, so I'm not going to go too in depth into it. It's like watch any of my other live streams. But basically, polyamory, as far as like morally, it's like, I don't, whatever works for you. We're all unique individuals. We all have individual needs. Whatever truly creates happy harmony and balance for you is perfect. The thing to understand about polyamory and, being with multiple partners is that there's a really deep, intense, intimate energy exchange during sex. So you're taking on a lot of the patterns from your partner, right? So that if you're with multiple partners and you don't really have a strong practice where you're like dissolving stuff that's not really yours, this is where a lot of people run into troubles. They're just creating all this emotional, psychic, even like ancestral baggage for themselves. And it's difficult. It becomes difficult to discern, like, this yours, is this mine? Is this, girlfriend number 4? Like, I don't know where this is coming from. You're creating a lot more work for yourself psychically. Just important to be aware of that. And sometimes there's a tendency for people to avoid intimacy by sleeping with multiple people, because it's like once people get to a certain point in their relationship and they start to really open up, it's like they get a bit scared because maybe they've been hurt in the past and they're afraid to really open themselves up. It's like, okay, I need to be with someone new to create a bit of a distance from this one person and to kind of have the honeymoon phase of the relationship in the beginning where everything's new and exciting. And maybe this is a projection, but I've definitely seen this pattern in a lot of people who do this lifestyle. So just be perfectly honest with yourself. Like, what is it you're really trying to get? Are you just kind of seeking more of a superficial relationship where you want the immediate gratification of the early stage of the relationship without the deep intimacy and sometimes conflicts that go in the deeper long-term relationships, right? So just really look like, what is it you really want, and what is this really coming from your authentic self, or is this kind of like a childish impulse you have? Just be really, look at this. I said I was going to be address this shortly, but we went in a bit deep there, didn't we? Michael, what's up, Michael? Michael says, my lower back, hips, and legs have been tight lately. Do you recommend I do the yoga practice from your course? Anything else? Yeah, I specifically, so I have a bonus yoga routine in my course that helps really open up the lower body. That's a solid routine in general. Hips, legs, lower back. Again, sitting down a lot will cause this. So as much as you can, move throughout the day. Getting some massage, body work. I use a foam roller a lot, like to really target like trigger points and things like that can help release some of that stuff. Also, like those vibrating massage guns, those can help loosen things up. But yeah, just in general, stretching, yoga routines to open up that area. And again, the one I have in the course is pretty solid. Yes, I'm reading questions from YouTube and Instagram. That's why you're like, where are these questions coming from? He's just making stuff up. It's because I'm on 2 platforms right now. Gabrielle Z says, do you practice the tongue kung fu that Montauk Chia teaches in his books with an orange? I haven't really done that. So this is the thing about Montauk Chia's books is like they all have like 100 practices in it. You're like, no way one person could do all this in their daily routine. Like he's got like over 100 books, millions of practices. It's like he's definitely not doing all these practices. But having said that, no, I don't do it because I'd rather do the real thing to strengthen my tongue if it was down to that. So I don't know if you want to like really, 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 it's never really been a problem for me like that or, working with my tongue, I would say. So if you really want to make your tongue crazy strong, sure, you could do it that way, but it's not really something I work with right now. Potion in Motion says, thanks for the great content. I love the qigong videos. Have you noticed when your skin gets that glitter, animals notice it too, like dogs or cats? Skin gets the glitter? I'm not sure I understand the reference. Just you're probably just talking about like in general, like when you become more vibrant and glowy from energy cultivation. It's funny. I've always like animals have always liked really been drawn to me my whole life. Like if there's a cat in the room, it will always like come to me and like sit on my lap and be all over me. Often with dogs too. So I don't know. I've always just kind of like animals like me for some reason before I was doing qigong and everything. Love Takes You Home says, how deep will your course go into opening the meridians and energy body centers? I have been meditating for a while and moving energy, so I don't want your course to be too easy. Well, we're going to the microcosmic orbit and moving sexual energy through the channels, the organ system, the glandular system. So, if you have a ton of experience, if you're, working with the microcosmic orbit, then you've probably already got that down. But the big thing also is grounding, how to connect your sexual energy into the earth, create this grounding cable between the earth and your sexual center, which you basically I teach you how to draw the earth's chi in and combine it with your sexual energy, which makes your sexual energy a bit more manageable, a bit cooler, a bit easier to digest. And there's very, very advanced practices on, again, we're moving the sexual energy through the organ system, through the glandular system, through the front and back channel. Potion Motion says, in your new course, how deep do you go into Tai Chi? Plan on buying it soon. You're talking about Immortal Energy Arts, which is my kind of the real deep dive into more the energetic work, just general energy cultivation. There's no sexual practices in Immortal Energy Arts. But as far as Tai Chi, the depth I go into Tai Chi, basically I teach the form that I practice, which is Henry Wong's variation of the Jim Manchin Yang style. But more importantly, the energetics of Tai Chi, which is what I'm really about, right? How to a practice called cat stepping, where you turn your legs into a chi pump, and basically how to like really, really, really light yourself up doing Tai Chi. Once I started understanding this with Tai Chi, because like I studied Tai Chi for years, and I was going to like a Shaolin center. I was like, okay, I got the physical movements, but like nothing's really happening. Like I feel a little bit of tingling in my hands, but like this is not like what the classics are talking about. If you read the Tai Chi classics, they talk about this full body energy experience. Once I got into like the real internal Tai Chi stuff, it was it changed everything. It was like, oh, a lot of Tai Chi is just physical. And this is like, when you do real Tai Chi, it's insane how energetically powerful it is. Your whole body lights up. It starts to feel like you're radioactive, buzzing, this fluid moving through your body. It's crazy. So that's what I get into in Immortal Energy Art. So that sounds good to you, then go for it. Tina says, so Psych, you're going to add in these mini practices at the beginning. Thank you and appreciate you remembering the women who follow you too. Keep up the awesome work. Awesome. Thank you, Tina. Yeah, it was like, obviously most of my stuff's addressed to women. I'm sorry, addressed to men, but I know there's some women. And I have some insights for, the ladies out there as well. So thanks for being representing the feminine on YouTube. Jessica says, so many distortions, creeps me that men watch porn while being partnered to women. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like a normalized thing in our society. And obviously we have a lot of distortions around sexuality as a species. It's a real mess, honestly. But that's, why I'm so passionate about doing what I'm doing, is like untangling the mess and get humans back into how they're meant to be, which is divine beings, and where sexual energy is something that empowers them and heals them and not just, makes them do weird things. The Ascending Ancient says, what are your thoughts on ingesting your own semen? I think it's fine if you want to do it. One of my teachers like swears by this. He's like, if you ever ejaculate, then eat it, and I'm like, sure. So if you want to, go for it. It's like, I think it was Stephen Chang who says that he kind of studied the nutritional analysis of semen. It's the equivalent of like a New York steak, like, like several eggs, 2 lemons, oranges, all this stuff. Like there's a ton of nutrients in one load of semen. So it makes sense to eat it if you want to do that. Francisco Beckman says, how to balance yin yang energy when self-cultivating? I think that's a great question. I've had a lot of insight around this recently as I've been thinking into this, because men have kind of been asking me about this. Like I remember, I think it was last week, someone was saying that whenever they do self-cultivation, they just feel like irritated and kind of like angry. So I think this really comes down to having some sort of yin element. As men, our sexual energy is very fiery. It's very yang. And without balancing that, it can become irritating, right, to your system. And a lot of this comes down to your habits. Like if you're let me say this. Connecting to your heart during self-cultivation is very, very important. For men, there's this tendency, especially when they're by themselves, it's just like, okay, it's all about like sexual imagery, this kind of visual aspect of sex, like thinking about what it looks like to be with, the shape of their partner's body, the visual stimulation of sex. They're often thinking about these things, and it creates this lustful energy that's very hot. It's very, lower center. And there's no like yin kind of, or like heart energy to balance that out, right? Loving, compassionate energy. So what I recommend, if you're, you feel like your self-cultivation is just like that excessive kind of fiery, excessive lust, desire that leaves you kind of feeling like, at the end, like, relax a lot more. Check out my video on Karezza, Karezza. I go into this more in the course too, but basically having more relaxation. So not just like stimulation, like trying to get right up to the edge and just like being at this very, very high point of arousal. That can create a lot of, too much yang, too much fire congestion. So keeping your body very, very relaxed. Stay away from like the really high levels of arousal. Stay at like 70% and just focus on breathing deeply, keeping your body relaxed. Put a hand on your heart, bring the energy into your heart and feel love for yourself, love for your body, love for your being, and bring more of that heart energy into that emotional energy. That's kind of something I noticed. I was like, because several years ago, I was like, why is it whenever I do self-cultivation, it's so much different than being with a partner? And what I realized is when I'm with my partner, I'm so much more in my body, and like my heart is open because, I love her very much. And I feel a lot of emotions and intimate feelings throughout the session. So, and I realized that I was kind of lacking that when I was just working with myself. And it was kind of a big healing for me of realizing, wow, if I bring in this self-love and that same sort of like, heart-centeredness to my self-cultivation, it completely changes the dynamic. So make it less about just trying to like get off, like, I've been saying that a lot today, more about like loving yourself, bringing the energy through your body, making it a healing practice. So hopefully that helps or answers your question somewhat. B says, started doing the 7 healing sounds. I guess you meant the 6 healing sounds. Maybe there's a 7th one that you're doing too. I don't know. And qigong and meditation every day. I really love it. Thank you. Do you recommend any other practices to add? Awesome. I'm glad that you were doing it, doing the work. That's what it's all about, is actually having the practice. That's what will actually bring you the results. So 6 healing sounds, qigong, meditation, that's great. As far as what to add, I mean, there's a lot of things you could add, but it depends where you're at in your practice. Like, I recommend doing the Dantian breathing practice, which is on my YouTube channel. That will build your Dantian, which will really, really basically make your qigong more efficient in time as your Dantian starts to really build. Some breathwork practices could be great too. I've got a whole playlist on that. Okay, Jim Boat says, in your 12-week course, how available are you to answer questions? Presumably the calls aren't so packed with people that most questions are ignored. No one gets ignored in my live calls. I answer every question on the live calls. You have complete support throughout the process. And there's also there's a Facebook group and a group within my website. Basically, there's a community there where you can ask questions anytime that come up, and I will answer them. So you will always have your questions answered. You will have support throughout the whole course. Francisco says, can a sexual kung fu man be celibate? Yeah, you certainly can. Just got to keep yourself balanced throughout it, right? And I think it's important, I've said this several times, but celibacy, I don't think it's something anyone should force themselves into. Like, okay, well, I read here that it's better if I'm celibate and I don't really want to, but this person said I should, so I'm going to do it, even though I don't really want to, right? That's more of a suppression, and it's not really arising naturally, and it's probably going to cause you issues if that's the approach, like you're forcing yourself to be. But if it's like a natural, like, I simply do not desire to have sex anymore, I feel completely unified within myself, and it's this natural progression of celibacy, that's great. And the sexual kung fu practices will be equally beneficial for you, because you'll learn to manage your sexual energy, which is important, right? To keep it moving, to keep it transforming, circulating through your body. Rendell Frank, what's up? Rendell says, would you make a DVD version of your course available at some point? I don't know if that's a possibility. I mean, most people don't. My computer doesn't even have a DVD player. I'm like, can people still make DVDs? I don't know. Everything's kind of, I hate to say it, but everything's kind of live streaming. Streaming is kind of where everything's at right now. So I financially would not be realistic for me to make DVDs. I'm sorry, but if you have, an internet connection, then you can access the materials online. You can also download the materials once you have the course. Brenda Frank says, what's the name of the eighth chakra? I'm not sure. There's a lot of different chakra systems. I've seen 13 chakra systems, so depends which system you're, I don't know all the names of the chakras anyway. Forrest Kennedy says, how does this work for women? Well, for women, a lot of the practice of sexual kung fu involves, part of it is opening up the womb space, the yoni space. For women, there's been so much, we could say, collective horrific sexual repression of women. I mean, everyone in general, humans in general, are sexually repressed, but especially women have been the victims of a lot of horrific sexual abuse throughout the ages. And so there's often a lot of women often have a lot of blockages in the yoni space. Like, the womb is this empty space, and it often becomes kind of filled with the things they can't really deal with in the moment. It often gets held in this space. So for women, a lot of the process is opening up the yoni space, clearing out any of these old traumas, blockages, things here, and opening up the heart, learning to just like men, learning to engage their whole body with the sexual energy. And there's also the aspect of, for men, kind of the emphasis is as far as managing Jing, G-I-N-G, your physical essence, your vitality. Managing your Jing for men involves regulating your ejaculation. Men lose Jing through excessive ejaculation. Women lose Jing through excessive menstruation. For women, the menstruation, it's a bit of a psychic cleansing for the energy body, really. So if there's a lot of stress, negative emotion, trauma, the body uses its physical resources to kind of purge these things out, which takes a lot of energy. But when women have a practice where they're internally consciously releasing these things, then their periods often become much lighter and less severe or enjoyable. Kid Life Crisis says, where can we learn more about the specific Tai Chi practice? I've got a video on I'll share a couple resources on my YouTube channel. I have a video, I think I call it the most energizing Tai Chi postures. Just look up sexual Kung Fu Tai Chi. You'll find that video. That is a really actually solid routine to get some of that energy I'm talking about going, because it's really the posture holding that's the root of all, Tai Chi, Xingyi, Bagua, which is Yan Zhuang practice, right? Which is why I'm so big on this practice, is because you learn how to engage your body in a way that turns you into a chi conductor. And so you apply that into movement, right? So this video teaches you, I share like my three favorite Tai Chi postures. You just hold these postures with certain internal engagements and it lights you up. The other one is, I think I called it grounding qigong practice. It's this walk. It's like a walking qigong practice. If you watch it, you're like, this looks stupid. How could this do anything? That's what I thought when I first saw it. But when you do this practice, the cat step practice, it's energetically the most powerful thing I've ever experienced. It's crazy. Not in the first time you do it, but once you start to build on it, builds and builds and builds, it charges your legs up. The legs are really the powerhouse of energy for your whole body. Definitely in the internal martial arts, all the classics talk about this. The power arises from the legs. People are like, oh yeah, you have to have strong legs, but it's not that. It's energy. It's this peng, jing, this thick, viscous energy. When you get your legs energetically activated, it pumps up your whole body. This was a big breakthrough in my practice in qigong. When I stopped focusing on my arms so much, started to focus on lighting up the legs. It's insane the amount of energy that starts to course through your system. So check those practices out. And if you want to go deeper into that, check out my Immortal Energy Art School. Can you guys tell I'm a nerd about Tai Chi and qigong? Like Jim Boats, he says that's a hell of a water bottle you got there. This is my half-gallon, baby. Yeah, I'm like, I need to drink at least a gallon of water a day, so I got this half-gallon water bottle, and I drink 2 of these a day. I'm good. Drink your water, kids. Also, at the gym, I was always running out of water, and I'm not going to drink, tap water, so I had to bring a big fat bottle. Elias Perez says, when you're first practicing semen retention, what's an average time that a guy should go without ejaculating? Depends on your age, whether you're practicing sexual Kung Fu and everything. But in general, I would say a man, if you're like 20s, early 20s, you should go at least a week at a time without ejaculating. You can go longer, though, but a minimum time of a week. If you're in your 30s, at least 2 weeks, I would recommend 10 days to 2 weeks, right? And then so on. When you're in your 40s, 3 weeks or longer. But the general rule is, if you feel completely wiped out after ejaculating, like, you should probably go longer. Where are we at? Okay. Ruhan says, how to find your yang, as in your most compatible partner. This comes down to your unique. Generally, you want someone who's there's a lot of factors here, I would say. As far as a compatible partner, obviously, like, if you're into this, self-conscious, self-cultivation, personal growth, lifestyle, you meditate, then you probably don't want someone who just like, does drugs all day and eats McDonald's every night and is not taking care of themselves at all. You guys probably won't be super compatible. So compatible, did I say compatible? So someone who's like, they don't have to be, on the exact same path as you, but like, your lifestyles should at least kind of complement each other, right? And then as far as like personalities and things, generally you want to yin and yang. So if you're a very, very yang person, if you're like driven and you're kind of a leader, you take charge, then you're probably going to want someone who's a bit more passive, someone who wants you to lead them, someone who's a bit more submissive, right? And likewise, if you're more of a yin person, if you're more submissive, quiet, kind of withdrawn, then you want someone who's a bit more like yang. So it's really just, opposites attract, this magnetism. There's a lot of dynamics to this, but hopefully that kind of helps. And also be aware of like, are you attracted to people because they're playing out these mommy daddy issues you have? This is a very common thing. This is a kind of a basic, thing in psychology, is that we typically attract our parents. If you're a man, you typically attract someone who's like your mother. If you're a woman, you often attract someone who's like your father. Or sometimes it's like the negative aspects. Like if you had a very controlling father, you may get in a relationship with someone who's very controlling for you. So you'll see these kind of situations play out. And I don't know, obviously there's a lot to this, but hopefully that was a, a good start. Francisco says, in Taoist Secrets of Love, there's mentioned a practice in which you make your yin yang energy make love internally. Can you talk about this? Yeah, this is Kan and Lee practice, which I've seen a lot of different explanations of Kan and Lee. I've studied two very, very, very different Na-Dan internal alchemy systems. But basically, obviously like Montauk Chia's system, which Michael Wynn's I studied Michael Wynn's version, which he changed significantly from how Montauk Chia teaches it. Basically you're coupling, so you're kind of gathering the essences of your yin and yang essences, your internal male and female, because we all have male and female within us. We all have these male female aspects. And so the idea of the Kan and Lee practice is you kind of gather this. You're also like gathering the organ energies, reversing the 5 phase energies down into just a yin yang energy. So wood and fire combine to become primal fire. Water and metal combined to become primal water. And then there's the earth in between, and you couple these. Study with Michael Wynn if you want to do it, basically. I don't really teach this stuff because for various reasons, but Michael Wynn's a phenomenal wizard with that stuff. It's a very, very powerful practice, and I do it often as well. It's Kan and Lee. Internal alchemy, baby. Amy Ann says, I'm a tantric priestess working with mostly women, but now more men are coming to learn from me, but I feel like I need more resources and techniques for men. Can women join your course? Yeah, women can definitely join the course if you're just wanting to like be able to educate men on the stuff. And there's also like pretty much all the practices you'll be able to use as well. There's a lot of just general energy cultivation techniques. So it's a great course overall, for sure. Steven says, hey, Johnathan, what's the difference between the new 12-week course and the old 6-week one? The contents inside both look the same. They are the same course. Basically, I upgraded the 6-week course, expanded it to become a 12-week course because I was adding new things. I'm like, this is a lot. I'm like, I felt like it would be better to expand it to a 12-week course, just create more of like a longer period to kind of digest and go through the material. So if you bought the course when it was a 6-week course, you now have access to it as a 12-week course. Anyone who's ever bought the course gets all the updates that I do to the course, all the changes I make. Like when I first launched the course back in 2018, a year later, I completely re-recorded it, made it completely different. And everyone who bought the course, I gave them a new course for free. So that's what happens if you join the course. You get I'm often adding new things to it as well. So yeah, it's comprehensive, and you have lifetime access to it. Stephen Watts also says, also any exercises you recommend to try that can clear out all of the tension, the self-doubt, anxiety, fear I feel in my mind, body, and soul? Yeah, I mean, inner smile is a big part of this, which is a really deep practice. Six healing sounds can help with some of the more kind of surface layers of this stuff. Meditation in general will really help you go deep into this stuff. And qigong helps to balance out overall your energetic patterns, your five phase energies, your meridian system. Qigong's a great kind of self daily regulation tool. CJ says, is it okay to be more yin as a man, or is that a sign of deficiency? Well, it depends where it's coming from. Like, are you yin because you're exhausted, because your hormones are out of balance? That was the case with me. I was quite yin and feminine for the first part of my life. I think a lot of it was because I had three sisters. I was around a lot of feminine energy, and I didn't have a very good relationship with my father for the first part of my life. So I kind of lacked a lot of that. Kind of a good example of masculinity, I would say. Even though, I mean, my father's an amazing man. He was an amazing provider for us all. I just didn't have a very good personal relationship with him, right? And that kind of skewed some of my own internal dynamics. Also, I was ejaculating recklessly, which was wrecking my endocrine system. I was eating garbage foods, and so my hormones were definitely pretty messed up in my early 20s, and that's what really one of the reasons I came to sexual kung fu, because I was just depleted. And my life completely changed once I started practicing sexual kung fu, started building up my sexual energy. I became a completely different person. So your question of, is it okay to be yin? It depends. If you have more of a yin behavioral personality thing, and that's how you want to be, that's fine. There's no right or wrong here, but also ask yourself, like, what are you looking for? Like, what do you want to accomplish in your life? Do you want to do big things? Do you want to accomplish a lot of things? You might need a bit more yang energy to do that. Do you want a partner who's, maybe I'm just kind of assuming things here, but like, if you want a partner who's like a very yin, exuberant woman, and you're being kind of a yin man, you're not really going to be a good match for that, right? So it's just, again, it comes down to what you want. If you're happy being with how you are, that's fine. But if you'd rather be more in like a strong masculine place, then you can cultivate yourself to become that. But it comes down to what you want, who you want to be. The Ascending Ancient says, what do you ideally want to achieve for yourself through your works and creations? Well, for me, it's bigger than myself. I would be content just to still be playing my guitar for a living, and I will say it's been a lot of work what I've been doing in sexual kung fu, and I never thought I'd be doing anything like this. But there came a point in my life where it was almost like karmically, like, hey, you have this. There's a path open for you where you could be teaching this stuff to a lot of people and making some dramatic, transformations for people. And I saw that the world really needed this. We're fucked up sexually as a species, and I was like, someone's got to be teaching this stuff, because there's just not a lot of it out there. So that's kind of the reason I started started teaching sexual kung fu. Is like, humanity needs this, and I've developed a lot of ability and skill with this work, and I know how to share it with others in a more practical way maybe than some people are teaching it. And so, that's my big thing, is like, I want people to wake up to their sexual power and see that they don't have to be slaves to their impulses. They don't have to be slaves to some person outside of themselves, right? And I also see myself as a bit of a record keeper, in that the ancient arts, the internal arts, which is what I'm really passionate about. I'm really passionate just about energy cultivation in general. Sexual practices are just one aspect of my personal practice. I really want to preserve the ancient arts, which is kind of something I realized recently I'm doing through my Immortal Energy Arts Academy, where I'm just preserving all the systems I've studied and all these different lineages of energy cultivation systems, because these ancient paths, these ancient lineages are in danger of becoming extinct, because we live in a world of instant gratification. People aren't really, not as many people now are interested in really doing this Jedi training. People want to just sit in front of the screen and click a button and have, their dopamine fired off. Humans are becoming disconnected from that, which makes them humans, becoming lazy. And so I want to preserve this material that I've spent years and years of my life training intensely in, and preserve that for future generations, for whoever wants to do it. It's a small portion of the population actually interested in this work right now. And yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that answers your question. So I really want to achieve is liberation for humanity. And for me, it's also a way to, this is also part of me making a living as well. Not, I never started doing this for money, but it started to become my main work because obviously it was important for the world and for myself. So, there's many layers to it, I would say. Immortal Energy Arts is not part of the 12-week course. It's a separate offering. Sonia XS says, what does it mean if your man wants to smoke weed before sex? It could be a lot of things. For a lot of people, weed is kind of like a sensual enhancement. Like some people are like, it's like, what was that movie? There's a movie with Dave Chappelle. It was like, what was it called? Half Baked or something. And like, he's going to this guy. He's like, have you ever watched this movie on weed? So it's kind of like, people have this mindset like, well, if I do it on weed, it makes everything better. So for some people, these sensual things become better. Maybe it helps him get out of his head and more in his body. It can be kind of a medicinal thing for some people, but it can also be kind of a vice, like afraid of being with what is, in a way to kind of like numb themselves. I don't know. It's difficult to say why he does it. You could ask him. Marcino Capri says, don't you think there is still a taboo about prostate stimulation between men? Men are definitely afraid of this, or at least they're afraid to talk about it. And those who do it are afraid to talk about it too. So yeah, definitely men are afraid to explore their prostate region, explore their anal region. Because again, this just comes down to shame and guilt around sexual things. Just in regular masturbation, a lot of men feel kind of shame and guilt about it. Like they wouldn't really talk about, these things, right? So it's even more enhanced with prostate stuff. Yeah. So, and then it's like, is there any wonder why 50% of men or more end up with prostate issues? Because they feel guilt and shame around this area of their body. They don't really address it. It's like, well, it's not going to go there. So it's like, that which is unconscious, tends to develop weird things. Randall Frank says, which one of your sexual kung fu teachers would you recommend a person just starting out learn from? Good question. And the thing I have to say here is that everyone else teaching this stuff teaches some methods I don't agree with now, such as the um, the, the squeezing the pelvic floor muscles. All of my teachers are teaching this method, squeeze the pelvic floor muscles, and for me, it can make things worse for a lot of men. Build up more tension, make erections worse, make premature ejaculation worse, things like that. So that's something I don't vibe on, but you could just, replace that with my approach of relaxation down there. But having said that, Michael Wynn, I really like how Michael Wynn teaches his work. His Healing Love course is pretty phenomenal. Who else? Lauren Johnson, who I actually did an interview with. I'll be sharing that on YouTube soon. He's got a great approach to this as well. His approach is a bit more fiery, kind of the Montauk Chi, a bit more like force and things like that. But he's a solid practitioner as well. So yeah, whoever you vibe with, Sonia XS says, how to support my boyfriend who has erectile dysfunction. I'm going to lose my Instagram feed in a minute and 40 seconds. So I will come back on Instagram after that, after my live ends. It makes me end my live at an hour. So your boyfriend has ED, how to support him. Just be, compassionate as you can, supportive of him, because it can be an incredibly embarrassing, humiliating experience for men. And maybe share with him some resources. I have a whole video which goes into depth on erection. It's called the Ultimate Erection Guide for Men. So the things to look at with erectile dysfunction are diet, exercise, sleep is very, very important. It's obvious it can be hormonal things. Also, is he watching porn? Is he jerking off to porn? That will, have a dramatic impact on that. Porn-induced erectile dysfunction, if that's the case. Hormone levels, is he taking pharmaceutical drugs that can cause things? There's a lot of factors to it, right? But basically, yeah, do some research, find some resources, and, tell him you're there to support him through the process. which is really awesome of you. Okay, and then Jim Boats says, do you still have heated, lustful sex? I always talk about my sexual experiences being relaxed, spiritual experiences. Well, I definitely have very, very heated sex with my partner. I will say, like, you know, sometimes we want to get really rough with it, right? I wouldn't say it's 100% lustful in that there's always a heart connection because we love each other, right? But yeah, there's definitely more of that kind of animalistic approach to it. So 100%, I do that a lot of the time as well. I don't always want slow, boring tantric sex. Oh, Instagram's going down. All right. Oop, a little glitch here on Instagram. Give me a second, guys. This is an obnoxious thing that happens every time, I know. There we go. All right. Where am I? Eli Tyler 1 says, I sometimes find it easier just to withhold from all forms of stimulation altogether, self-pleasure, etc., for periods of time. Is this a workable approach? Totally workable approach. You know, I've had long periods of time where I was basically celibate. I wasn't having, when I was single, you know, I would go through periods where, yeah, just wasn't having much sex or like self-stimulation. And if it's like a natural thing, like because I'm doing a lot of meditation, I'm doing a lot of qigong, I'm really moving the energy, then it's fine. But if it's like a repression thing, you know, again, I recommend that you do gain conscious connection to your sexual energy. So you're neither repressing it or being like controlled by it, right? And so whatever that looks like for you, but slowly find out periods where you're not directly sexual. Firegate says, do you think it is possible to have a non-ejaculatory orgasm with a person you have no emotional connection to? It's going to vary from person to person, but for a lot of men, I will say it's probably a lot more difficult to get into the deeper states of orgasm, the more energetic, full body states of orgasm, because there's a certain a big part of it is this kind of surrendering. It's opening. It's kind of a yin process, actually. It's almost like a uh, part of it is, again, it's a deep opening, right? It's a vulnerability in it, and if you're really closed down, like you're not going to be able to, probably not going to be able to get to that state, right? So that's why I recommend, you know, having sex with someone who you do have an emotional connection to. If you're just kind of sleeping around, uh, you're kind of only going to get to the shallow layers of this practice. Pepe Ruano says, hey man, I achieved a 150-day streak of no busting and my athletic abilities were on another level. Awesome, brother. Good work. Now the question is, can you do the same thing with non-ejaculatory orgasms and lots of sex? It'll be on a whole nother level then. CJ says, what are the 6 healing sounds? It's a practice I teach in the course. It works with the 5-phase energies, works with the organ energies, but really it's our emotional energies as well. And it's just a way to use sound and movement working with the meridian system to clear negative emotions, to clear things that are held in there. It's a very powerful and simple practice. Ascending Ancient says, are you Sedona based? Also, have you considered traveling, retreats, workshops? I'm not based in Sedona right now, though I'm likely moving there in the next little while. We'll see. As far as retreats and workshops, I definitely want to do a lot. I'm hoping to do some this year. I want to start looking into or booking some retreats and workshops because I want to be in person with you guys, teaching information. It's so much power. It's really, really powerful when you're live, you're at the retreat space, you're really in it doing the work. It's when the big transformations happen. So hoping to do a lot more of that this year. Yeah. Zeke the Geek says, a little off topic, but I actually farted in front of my girlfriend at dinner the other night for the first time and it got really awkward. What do you think I should say to make it less awkward? I mean, just so like, yeah, I farted. It's I'm pretty sure it's something that every single human does. So it's like, I know in the beginning, it's like, it is the first stage of dating where it's like you're like, well, I don't poop, I don't fart, I don't have these natural human things. So it's probably something eventually you'll have to get comfortable with. Not just saying you just like let them rip all the time in front of them, but just like it's nothing to be embarrassed about. Just like, I don't know, make it funny. Stephen Watts says, during things like the inner smile and six healing sounds, I find it extremely difficult to visualize for some reason. My OCD or perfectionism might have something to do with it. Any advice? You don't really need to visualize, especially like, six healing sounds. Like, yeah, we often use like color and things like that, but if you can't see color, it's fine. Just feel the area in your body where the organ is you're working with. As you exhale the sound, move your awareness from the organ out your body. This is different than visualizing. Same thing with the inner smile. You're not just like visualizing your organs, you're placing your mind in that area of your body. You're feeling into that area. So just use feeling instead of visualization, and it's often much more effective anyway. Yes, Rocky from Octurus Ra. Eloverse, the love video game, says, why don't you create a DAO around the community of your followers? I'm not exactly sure what that means. We all have our own DAO. We all have our own path to follow. We don't need a big, like, I'm not sure getting in whatever, but I don't know. Everyone has their own path to follow. I'm not like a master or guru. We're all exploring things together. I'm exploring my own path and sharing with you what I've learned. You're all on your path. Don't put power outside of yourself. I'm just a human, sharing the things that I've learned and what works for me. I don't believe in like masters and gurus. Obviously, people have a lot of skill and I like to learn from them, but it's not like like they are my, ultimate supreme everything. Sean, 1996 boy says, is there a way to build up your sexual energy field or aura to cultivate your sexual magnetism quickly after a relapse or before going on a night out? Well, after you ejaculate, it simply takes time to recover your energy. Take a nap, eat some power foods, some gene builders. You'll be solid. Deep earth pulsing is a really great practice for building sexual energy. Especially drawing the energy up from the earth into the testicles. I have a YouTube video of this. I also go, in depth into it on my course, but deep earth pulsing is great for building sexual energy. I also shared a practice, I forget what it's called, specifically for kind of like magnetizing your aura with your sexual energy. Basically, you breathe into your sexual center, like doing testicle breathing, then expand that into your aura and feel this field around you of your sexual energy. But in general, I kind of realized, like, I used to be really obsessed with things like this. Like, I gotta like make everyone else feel my sexual energy so they like me. And I realized how I was kind of living my life like based on other people's perception of me. Like, oh, I'm afraid if I'm just my normal self, they won't like me. Like, well, so you have to like look at these belief systems you have around this and things. And be like, why don't you just show up the way you are that day, 100% authentic? Then you're not like, spread it. You're not being trying to be someone you're not. You just are who you are. And if you're doing, the whole thing is like when you have a cultivation practice, you're doing qigong, you're doing meditation, you're doing the thing, like you radiate that energy and you don't have to like kind of, I don't know, you don't have to be, what's the word I say? It's kind of forced with it. Like, okay, yeah, hopefully this makes some sense. But yeah, you can totally do some things. I definitely recommend if you're about to go for a night out, like drinking and stuff, whatever, strengthen your energetic field, strengthen your boundaries for sure. Rendell Frank says, would things like dental fillings have a negative effect on your frequency and sexual energy? Well, depends, if you have mercury dental fillings, that's going to be poisoning your body. That's definitely going to have effect on your energy because, your physical energy, therefore your sexual energy. I got all the mercury out of my mouth, all the metal out of my mouth. I I think last year, the year before. So, you can, it's really like, there's so many things. There's so many things you're balancing. It's like your diet, kind of the external things, but there's also the internal. So it's like you want to be strong in both. Like you can have a really, really strong cultivation practice and like, really supercharging your energy. But if you're kind of like getting your ass kicked from the external world because you're not saying you do this, but like if you have a really, really bad diet, a bad lifestyle, you know, putting weird things in your body, then there's only so much you can do internally to support that. Aisha Nonoa says, how to build trust. It's a good question. First of all, you have to build trust in yourself, I guess. Everything, all of your external relationships are an extension of the relationship you have within yourself. The way we treat other people is often how we treat ourselves, and vice versa. And I don't know, ask yourself, do you trust yourself? Do you love yourself? Do you have compassion? Do you like really respect and love who you are? I think that's the first step. And then it's a matter of, trust comes with, I think trust is something that's kind of earned in some way. Not that you just expect everyone's going to let you down, but it's like, you just, it's people's actions. How are people's actions? That's what makes them trustworthy or not trustworthy versus the words that they say, but obviously in the beginning, like if you're beginning a relationship with someone, there's a certain amount of vulnerability or trust that you're putting yourself into. And a lot of people keep these walls around themselves because like, well, they're probably going to hurt me. So I'm just going to block off my heart. And, I don't know, there's a lot of depth to this, I would say, but I would say the first step is loving and trusting yourself and kind of going from there. Okay, and so the question, Alexander Soul says, is there a different state of awareness that you drop into when you breathe the energy down the front versus up the back? It doesn't feel much different for me personally. I feel more of a difference when I'm doing the reverse flow. Up the front, down the back, up the front, down the back, which is the kind of the water path of the orbit. That feels a bit more calming and yin for me. I often do that before going to sleep at night. But as far as like, honestly, a lot of the time I run my orbit, it's not in conjunction with the breath. That's kind of the more advanced orbit practice because the breath it's kind of a training tool in the beginning, but the energy itself, it transcends the breath. Breath is still kind of a superficial physical process, and the energy itself is something deeper. So you can be moving your orbit while holding your breath. It's not always interlinked. Oh, like a token. I totally misunderstood the question. Creating like a crypto token around the community of everything. I mean, it's not a bad idea. If someone if someone's a techie into that kind of stuff, because I'm certainly not. I mean, I'm into cryptocurrency. I invest in crypto, but I don't know. It's an interesting thought for sure. I totally misunderstood what you're saying. Tina says, books in addition to the Way of Energy, the Tao of Natural Breathing, Awaken Healing Energy through the Tao, Awakening Healing Love through the Tao, Tao of Health, Sex, the Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity. Any others you recommend? Bruce Francis has some really awesome books. His book, Taoist Sexual Meditation, is phenomenal. It's very, very advanced. Like for a lot of people, it's just gonna be like, what? But it's a good one for sure. Also, his book, Bruce Francis, Awakening or Opening the Energy Gates of Your Body. Really, really awesome. Kind of like a must-have qigong book for sure as well. So there you go. Zeke the Geek. Okay. How would you talk to your woman about farting? Serious question. I value your opinion. I mean, if it's really like a thing to be like, hey, I feel embarrassed about farting, but it's a natural thing, and I'm probably going to be farting more, and I'm sure that you fart as well. So why don't we fart in front of each other and start the process of it becoming less awkward? I don't know. That's a way you could do it. Just to tell her you're embarrassed about it and that you want it to be an open, you're in an open farting relationship. Jim Boat says, why do you dress up as a redneck sometimes? So my Jim Bob, I wanted to infuse some humor into sexual kung fu. So I was like, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna dress. I was in I went to like a Walmart. I bought like, the Jim Bob outfit. And I was like, well, and it was like, as soon as I put it on, it's like I started channeling my inner redneck. I grew up in a small town, so I literally know people who are Jim Bob. You know what I mean? And there was just something that seemed really, really hilarious to me about a redneck who was like talking about sexual kung fu and tantra and knows a lot about it, but is like like it's just this, the interesting dynamic of it seemed funny to me. And I was just like, well, I don't know. I'll see how people respond to this. So I'll probably do some more Jim Bob videos. We'll see. Yeah, when you said Tao, I'm thinking like Taoism and Taoism. So like the Tao. So I'm like creating like I was completely understanding what you're saying. Some people spell Tao Tao, some people DAO, but yeah, as far as the decentralized thing, it's a bit different. IBay 22 and QWERTY says that reminds me, since I edge, my prostate is still at Herculean shape, still wasting some energy though. Yeah, we have to be careful with edging though. If you build up a lot of tension, edging, I mean, I talked about this in my recent video I made on edging, but basically if you build up a lot of tension, it can actually be kind of hard on the prostate because there's all this like fluid in there, and it can irritate your prostate if you don't resolve it. A good way to do that is with the tennis ball massage, where you sit on the tennis ball with it in your perineum. And this fits right in with Pepe Ruano says, why is there this myth of prostate cancer by not ejaculating constantly? It's just one of these things, the marvels of modern medicine, modern medical stuff. The studies I've seen are pretty inconclusive. There's so many factors they didn't take into account. And I always say this, but 50% of men end up with prostate issues. So if your only way of taking care of your prostate is ejaculating, then you're actually not that concerned about your prostate. It's much more than just that. Uh, I would I can't really make any medical claims here, but I would say prostate issues are often about stagnance in this area. Um, Stagnants mean that things aren't moving, often from a lot of tension in this area. You're sitting down too much, your hips are really tight, there's a lot of congestion in this area, poor sexual habits, a lot of things. Again, nutrition, um, chemicals in the air you breathe in. I think it's what is it? Is it barium or one of those heavy metals? Are often found in certain prostate conditions. They find this chemical, or no, it's cadmium, which is in exhaust. It's in, there's a lot of it in the air basically, right? It's often found in the prostate in high amounts. So detoxing heavy metals from your body, being on your nutrition, there's a lot of aspects to prostate health, not just are you ejaculating or not. Sean, 1996 boy says, how do I get that weed mindset out of my life? I feel content, sober, but always find myself thinking, this would be so good though if I was baked. I feel this way of thinking will prevent my happiness. I mean, I can relate because again, I smoked weed every day for many years, my early 20s. Um, and it's probably always going to be there. And, the thing is like, you just have to find something better. I think that's how it was for me with Qigong. It's like, when I'm do like the other one of the past 2 days, I was doing my Tai Chi practice, and I was like really just pumping some serious energy up my legs, up my head was like buzzing like crazy. You want to light up your energy body, like do some Tai Chi. Well, the real Tai Chi, we're talking about that, right? Activate the legs to really activate your energy body. But anyways, I was like, holy shit, like this feels way better than any drug I ever took, just to be honest. And that's really what got me into Qigong and meditation and sexual Kung Fu, because it's different, but overall, it's a much more sustainable, clean, long-lasting high. And without, what are the negative effects of weed? The brain fog. For me, it really it can disrupt like my hormone levels and my sexual desire and things. So, you know, AKG's Queen says, what do you suggest for women to practice to cultivate more energy or activities that can transfer energies upward when we are single and celibate? Good question. As far as cultivating more energy, I think that qigong is a great practice. You know, qigong, meditation. There's also practice for women. It's basically I was doing at the beginning of this video. It'll be on my YouTube channel. You can watch it later. But the practice for women, where you breathe from the yoni, the ovaries. So you just breathe into that space for a little bit, and then breathe as you breathe. Move that your awareness from your yoni space up to the higher areas of the body through the microcosmic orbit, up the back to the crown. You can send it to your heart anywhere, right? That's a great practice for women to draw the energy upwards. I think dance and things like that, movement practices are great ways to just move your energy. Having creative outlets, breast massage also for women is really great. Spinning to Life says, I've heard semen retention can correct posture and even straighten up the spine. I don't know. I would say, if anything, how this may relate is kind of the kidney energy, and then we could say the structural integrity of the body. In Chinese medicine, your kidney energy relates to all the fluids of the body, especially the semen for men. And when your kidney energy is deficient because you're ejaculating too much, your poor diet, too much work, not enough rest, etc., it dries up your kidney energy, and this can cause your kind of one of the Chinese medicine things with weak kidneys is like the legs and the back become weak. So it's like it's these areas become less strong because you're deficient. So if a man stops ejaculating recklessly, builds up some sexual energy, your kidney energy starts to build back up. So you'll naturally have a stronger back and legs. I think that, yeah, there may be something to this for sure. Zeke the Geek says, how important do you think smell and pheromones are? Like important in what way? It's kind of it's kind of an identification, pheromones. We often are subconsciously attracted to people because pheromones are hormone levels. It's the body's way of saying, hey, I'm healthy, I'm juicy, I'm ready to go, baby. Like, let's do this. And they detect that. I think that's one of the kind of phenomenon behind men practicing semen retention and having more attraction from the opposite sex, because their pheromone levels increase, their testosterone levels increase. And so they're smelling you. So I guess important in that way, sure. Susi Malak says, sorry if I'm saying that wrong. He says, how do you channel sexual energy amidst the sexualized social media and basically everyday life? Do you just ignore the other sex? Well, why do you need to ignore the other sex? And the whole thing here is, well, okay, there's a lot of angles we go from, but basically, if social media is a problem for you, then why are you following accounts that aren't, you're not getting anything good from? I don't spend much time on social media at all these days. I create my content, I share it, I engage a bit, but like I don't just scroll through social media anymore. It was a very, very bad habit when any times that I did that. So there's that, but also like I think kind of what you're saying here is that when you start thinking about women, it turns you to feelings of arousal, and you feel like you need to release that through ejaculation. Here's the whole thing of learning to kind of separate this relationship you have to where sexual stimulation, it makes you feel aroused, and then you must ejaculate. That's the only remedy you have to that. This kind of ties into reaching completion without ejaculating and being okay with like, okay, I feel aroused. I saw a picture of an attractive woman. For most men, it's like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I need to jerk off and get this out of me. But it's like the sexual kung fu man says, okay, I feel the arousal, but instead of like needing to act on it, I'm just going to dissolve it or move it through my body. Like just bring that energy through my body, store the arousal. And so you have actually kind of gained something from it in a way, kind of refining it. Right. So I would say it's a matter of training and skill. It's a matter of deepening your discipline, your mind body connection. This is what sexual kung fu is all about, is becoming a master of your domain, your mind and your body, so that things don't, if you have an urge, you have a trigger, you have to act on it necessarily, right? You're able to put that energy into something good. Highway Child says, do you have any thoughts or experience on the use of kratom? Yeah. I got way down the kratom hole many years ago. So if you're not familiar, kratom or kratom, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. It's a psychoactive plant. It's similar to opiates, but it's not an opiate. Actually, it has some very, very powerful, like this plant could literally, I have to be careful what I say here. It could literally replace all the opiates on the market, all the painkillers that are, you want to talk about drug dealers, uh, pharmaceuticals, are the biggest drug dealers, putting people on opiates. My brother had, back surgery, and he was addicted to painkillers it was a really difficult experience for him. Anyways, kratom could actually replace all these things without a lot of the nasty side effects. So that's the beneficial. It could be a medicinal plant, but it also has strong potential for abuse. I got into this plant in my early 20s when, I was really into taking substances. I was really, one of those people who's like, I was smoking weed every day. I was just really fascinated about how entheogens and substances can kind of like alter your mind and your body. So I was like, oh, well, if something makes me feel better, then I'm going to take it. But I got a little bit hooked on this thing. I developed a really weird addiction to it. Honestly, I was a bit addicted to the substance. I took it almost every day, and I would like not eat for hours so that my stomach was empty before I took it. And once I did take it, I would actually feel pretty numb. I started realizing that after about a year or so, I'd been using this plant pretty frequently. I realized like, wow, I feel about 20 to 30 minutes of like this nice glowy feeling, and then I feel like numb and even like irritable, or like it started actually giving me anxiety. And that was when I was like, I have to stop taking this thing. And so I didn't have a healthy relationship with it. That's for sure. So that's my experience on it. Um, Again, it can be really, really helpful for people with certain medical conditions. I want to say maybe diabetes, maybe it was something else that this is actually pretty phenomenal for. My brother, one of my brothers has a certain condition that it actually really helped him with it, right? But again, if you're taking it just to get high, it can steal your soul. I will say I experienced that directly. So that was one of my kind of like addiction experiences, was this plant actually, and I can't do it anymore. So that's been my experience on it, and it definitely has kind of a lessening effect on the energy, I would say. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. Just a few more questions. I'm going to there's a lot of questions here. Sorry, I'm not able to answer everyone's questions today, but I'm going to kind of pick the most fitting ones, I will say. Okay, Honesty Best Policy says, what can we do immediately to channelize the energy when we feel sexual urge to self-stimulate? Well, first of all, what's wrong with self-stimulating? Unless your self-stimulating is associated with ejaculation, then that's a problem, right? So the whole thing here is like, there's nothing inherently wrong with engaging in sexual activity, sexual pleasure. It can be a way to generate phenomenal energy that you can bring into the other centers of the body and amplify everything. So, but if your self-stimulation results in ejaculation every time, then that's a different thing. So you want to learn to disassociate orgasm from ejaculation and release your addiction to ejaculatory orgasm. I actually have a video coming about that on YouTube in a couple of days. But basically, when you have strong sexual arousal and you feel like it's inappropriate to act on it in that moment, move to the microcosmic orbit. That's what we were doing at the beginning of this video. That's what testicle breathing, orgasmic breathing is doing, is you're moving the energy through your orbit, changing the form of it. Okay, Stephen Watts, what do I mean about placing the awareness moving from the organ to outside of your body? Can you elaborate? So here's the whole thing. You're feeling within your body instead of visualizing. There's a lot of this, visualizing things in some of these practices, right? But I've moved away from visualization because I actually find it can kind of disconnect your head from your actual body and your energy body, right? It just becomes a projection. Nothing's actually happening. So it's a feeling sense. So for example, if you're doing the lung healing sound, instead of just visualizing energy, moving, feel. So as you inhale, feel the space of the lungs. Just bring your mind into the space, like kind of pat your body, whatever you got to do, just feel into the space, like you're breathing into the lungs. Obviously, you are when you breathe, right? And as you exhale, move your awareness where your mind is placed from the lungs to outside of yourself. Move your awareness outside your mouth as you exhale the sound. And, practice that. Okay, here's an interesting question. Joseph says, I did qigong today while on an LSD trip. I could feel the chi so tangibly and can move my limbs just with life force. Is there any reason why LSD helps to feel the chi so much, and any dangers to this? Definitely some dangers to it. Psychedelics activate your higher centers. They do, but at the cost of your jing, your essence, your physical essence. I realized that I felt like just pretty drained on many levels after I took psychedelic drugs, which I haven't done for a long, long time. It depletes your gene. So you get this, it's kind of an acceleration. It's the fire path. It's like you burn up your resources, really some of your life force in exchange for like a bit of an amplified experience now. But this is not very sustainable because you always crash back down. You haven't really actually learned how to do this yourself. You're just like, I take this thing, it makes me feel this way. It's another instant gratification thing. So that's another thing that got me into having a self-cultivation practice, because you can get to those same states without the drugs, without the up and down and the giving your energy to something else. So, and the dangers as well. I mean, these things can cause a lot of mental issues. You're opening up doors that you don't understand to things that can come in and, influence you in weird ways, all kinds of things. It's a pretty slippery slope with the psychedelic experience. You have to be very, very careful with that. I've messed myself up in the past, I will say. Uh, Shauna Siddhant says, can you run us through a method we can employ to implosively ejaculate when you engage in sexual activity, say once a week? I'm not sure what you mean by implosively ejaculate, like ejaculate within yourself. I mean, you're talking about non-ejaculatory orgasm. It's a different thing. There's no sort of ejaculation happening in a non-ejaculatory orgasm, but basically, this is what I teach in a lot of my trainings and things. Basically, you breathe, you move the energy up as you're having sex before the moment of ejaculation. You don't ever want to hit the point of ejaculation. You've gone too far at that point. Okay, Herbage Meerkat says, Herbage Meerkat, what are your opinions on dragon sickness relating to dangers of improperly doing qigong? Should a beginner worry about it, or is it fine as long as you abide by basic qigong principles? Yeah, dragon sickness, qi deviation. This is pretty rare unless you're doing some like seriously high level potent stuff, which most people are incapable of until they've been doing practice for like 5 to 10 years. So not something to be concerned about with the beginner unless you're doing like really, really forceful practices. But if you're if you're obviously not using a lot of force, like this is one thing, at Kundalini yoga, I was messing myself up in some ways because it's a very forceful, very just driving energy up the spine sort of practice. It can be really great for some people, but it was really imbalancing for me. So just in general, as long as you're not doing anything crazily forceful, you're following your foundations and principles of, basic qigong cultivation, then you should be fine. Blackbird says, your thoughts on what's going on in the world, interesting time we're in. I mean, it's just it's an amplification and extension of everything that's been happening in the world for hundreds of thousands of years. It's just becoming very, very out in the open now, right? The manipulation, all the bullshit. I don't know what to say. I don't listen to the news anymore. I'm just in my own world right now, and it's a really exciting time for me. It's been an amazing time for me, honestly. If you get out of the fear and like the hypnosis that's happening through media and all this stuff, like it's actually a pretty cool time to be alive. It's not necessarily okay, eternal abundance. Not necessarily the edging is bad for the prostate. It's just the whole thing of like building a lot of tension. I can't really get into this too much right now, but if what happens is if you're going really like right on the edge, like you're about to ejaculate and you stop, all this fluid starts to build up in the prostate. And without releasing that fluid, then you can have a bit of irritation, things like that. I've actually experienced that before. And that's why I'm adamant about keeping the pelvic floor relaxed. Also, massaging that area afterwards. The tennis ball massage is great. If you do that, you'll be solid. Amber Honia says, how might diet relate to your spiritual practice? Do you maintain a special diet? Do you have any advice or recommendations for diet and spiritual practice? Good question. In the beginning, I was like, okay, I have to be vegan. I have to be, I have to only eat sprouts and raw vegetables to be spiritual. It'll make my vibration lighter. And I was the skinniest I've ever been when I did that, and it was not supporting my physical body. So here's the kind of thing, right? That's what I realized was like actually need to eat like heavy, dense, not dense in the way of like unhealthy, but just really like protein packed fat, healthy fats, things like that, to ground myself so that I can hold these kind of higher spiritual energies, right? So basically with diet, it's unique for everyone. Don't get into extremes. Don't get into like, there's always like these trending diets that are like extreme diets. And again, everyone's body's unique. What your body needs may be different at different times. Um, I don't follow kind of like an in the box diet. I eat a lot of different things. I eat what supports me, and I'm also, I work out. I go to the gym. I lift weights, so I need a lot of protein. I need a lot of calories in my body. What was the biggest game changer for me was learning to do muscle testing. That because a lot of people eat from their heads, like, well, I think I should need this because I read this in a book and I was convinced of this. But if you do enough research, uh, there's scientific proof that pretty much any type of diet is healthy. You know what I mean? But um, oh yeah, muscle testing. I learned this in a course I was doing a couple years ago. But basically, I hold my arm out like this, and I have my partner Mariah. She'll just test like, okay, there's a lock like this, and then I'll have whatever it is I'm questioning. I'll hold it in this other hand, and as she presses it, if it's not good for my body, all of a sudden I'll be really weak. And if it's good for my body, I'll be strong. And then I turn my hand like this, and she'll push here. And if I can hold that, then it's like really good for me, right? So I don't know. That's something you can look into as well. But basically, support your physical body, and that will support your physical path. A lot of people on spiritual paths want to be out of their body, right? But your body is housing your energy. It's your spiritual energy is an extension of your physical body and vice versa, right? So keeping your physical body healthy is very, very important. Your diet is not necessarily going to make you more spiritual, but it will make you feel healthier and more balanced so that you can support your spiritual path. And obviously, you don't want to eat, GMOs, um, pesticides, refined sugar, soy, these kinds of things, the basics. Okay. Chahan Siddhant says, okay, so you're going up to the point of no return and you're doing a bunch of muscular locks. The thing to understand is that you're still having a peak orgasm. It's basically the ejaculatory orgasm, but maybe without the ejaculation. It's also possible that you're actually ejaculating into your bladder. You're having a retrograde ejaculation. And after you urinate, it'll be really foamy and your semen's in it, right? This means you've still ejaculated. So just understand determine if that's what's happening, right? But this is a different method than what I'm teaching. I'm teaching an internal energetic orgasm, which is very different than the short-lived. Clayton Glasser says, what does it feel like in the body as opposed to visualization to physically squeeze energy up the sushumna into the pineal? Um, it feels, I can activate my pineal gland pretty easily. Just there's a certain practice I do, but it's not really like I would say it's like a groundbreaking experience. It's just like it lights up in there, it feels buzzing, and it's interesting, right? It depends. There's a lot of things here. It's like I'll feel my core channel when I'm working my core channel. I feel it open and I feel, my center's activated. But there's different types of energies you can run through them. There's different intensities of activation. So it's going to feel different. Usually for me, it just feels like, yeah, there's this electricity going up. I feel this electrical buzzing, this hydraulic radioactive feeling. It feels nice, right? But that's different than like I've got 10,000 volts of Kundalini energy going up and just blasting off into another reality. That's a very different experience, right? So it depends. It's not like it's all the same. Opening up the core channel and activating the higher centers, that is a very general statement. And it could be very, very different layers of experience. How much energy is going through, how open is that becoming, right? There's a lot of factors here. Okay, Mirsha, soy is definitely a no-go. I avoid soy entirely, except for fermented soy like tempeh and miso, because the fermentation, it basically removes the phytoestrogens, right? Soy is one of the most genetically modified foods. No good. Flaxseed, I've heard mixed things about. I avoid it because it potentially has the phytoestrogens. Oats, my body tests strong for oats, so I have some oats a little bit. Okay, Chahan Sadant, check out my YouTube channel and go through my non-ejaculatory orgasm playlist. I've got several playlists on these practices. So yeah, chastity. What answer about the fleshlight? What do I think about a fleshlight? I mean, it could be a training tool for yourself, but it could also become, the thing with these things is they can be overly stimulating. They're kind of unrealistic. It can be a good training tool in that, yeah, it's a bit more like the real thing. So you get to train your ejaculation control, but also they're often designed like very, very tight and constricting, overstimulate the frenulum area of the penis. So I don't know, it's kind of a mixed bag with it, I would say. I wouldn't be too concerned about using one of these, but if you really want to, go for it. Okay, guys. Wow, we're an hour and 40 minutes in. Good to see you guys. Good to chat with you guys. Not sure if I'll be going live next week. I'll let you know beforehand. But anyways, again, Multi-Orgasmic Man is closing in just over 24 hours. Your last chance to get in. This is a complete guide to the foundations and the more advanced practices of sexual mastery. Learn how to clear negative emotions, open up the energy channels of your body, circulate your sexual energy and ground it so you can have non-ejaculatory orgasms, have sex for hours, and practices where you directly learn to exchange sexual energy with your partners. Take care, guys.